When Congressman Ivey pressed Secretary Bessent on the involvement of Doge employees within the Treasury Department's payment systems, a network responsible for managing nearly $6 trillion in transactions, he wasn't simply asking about personnel. He was probing a much larger question. Who is really influencing critical government infrastructure, and what kind of people are being trusted to do so?
I appreciate you being here today, Mr. Secretary. I wanted to ask you a few questions about Doge and the role it's playing at Treasury. You came into office, I guess you were sworn in on the 27th, was it? You were confirmed by the Senate on the 27th? Is that about right?
28th.
28th? Okay. And then you started working at Treasury immediately after that? All right. And Doge began working there as well with respect to the payment systems?
Two individuals from Doge who were actually Treasury employees were on site.
Okay. And I believe you were approached by the highest ranking career official at Treasury, David Lebrick. Am I pronouncing his name correctly?
I believe it's Lebrick.
Lebrick? Okay. What was the nature of that conversation? I assume this was about the Doge issue, but tell me briefly what that conversation was about.
Well, that conversation was about a discussion of the payment system. And when I go back to what I didn't know, I think I walked in the office around 3 p.m., and I think he and I were having a conversation at 4:30, and
I got to ask for the short version.
Oh, no.
Okay.
But I will tell you that when we were talking about the tasks, that it was people like this individual who were hitting send on the payments. So, I've come to find out that he's part of the
Okay, I
problem.
apologize. I'll have to get that later from you.
Yep.
Feel free to send in substance of the discussion in a letter. But I guess what I was going to ask was, you just mentioned there were two people who were working with respect to Doge at the time.
Yes, sir.
And Mark Elez was one of those?
I'm not sure.
Not sure? You're not familiar with that name?
I don't recall that name. I interviewed Tom Krause and personally recommended him to work at Treasury.
Okay. Well, Mr. Elez had worked at Mr. Musk's SpaceX company. And the Wall Street Journal issued a story, I think around February 7th, that talked about statements that Mr. Elez had made in the prior year. One was, you could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity. Another was that he wanted to normalize Indian hate. A third was, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. And another was, I just want a eugenic immigration policy. Is that too much to ask? This man resigned shortly after that article was published, but you don't recall him being there?
Congressman, I did not recall that individual's name, but that individual was terminated.
He was terminated, okay. Well, I appreciate that. Although it appears that he then later turned up that he was rehired, I guess, and that he's continuing.
Not by Treasury, sir.
Okay, but he was continuing to do work for Doge, but in this instance, HHS and three other departments. You have no idea.
I didn't follow his career.
Okay. Well, you didn't catch J.D. Vance saying that he didn't think he should be terminated? Did you miss that too?
I don't recall that.
All right. Do you recall Mr. Trump saying that he should have a second chance?
I don't recall that.
No. Okay. And do you recall Mr. Musk saying he should be given a second chance as well?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I guess the main question too here is, what exactly was the vetting practice that you had in place before you brought on these two people and gave them access to the payment system, which is $6 trillion?
Well, sir, they did not have access to the payment system, or perhaps we have a different definition of access. They had read-only abilities, and they were there for tech support to look at the payment system, the ERP system, just like any private enterprise.
Is this an individual that you would have brought on even in that capacity if you'd known that he'd made these statements prior to him becoming part of that team?
Congressman, that I think it's very difficult to monitor everyone's social media.
That's not what I asked. If you knew that he had made these statements would you have brought him on in the capacity that he had at the Department of Treasury?
I think the Office of Personnel Management would have flagged that.
Would you have brought him on?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speculate.
The chair
The
now
heart of the
recognizes
concern lies in one former Dodge employee, Mark Alice. Alice had previously made openly racist, xenophobic, and extremist statements online, boasting about normalizing Indian hate and wanting a eugenic immigration policy. These aren't offhanded comments. They reveal a worldview steeped in racial superiority and intolerance. Yet, this same individual was brought into proximity with one of the most sensitive systems in the U.S. government. Representative Ivey's questioning cut straight to the moral and institutional failure at play. He wasn't satisfied with bureaucratic deflections. His refrain, "That's not what I asked," echoes the frustration of anyone watching powerful officials dodge accountability. Ivey wanted a simple, human answer. If you knew what this man stood for, would you have hired him? But Secretary Bessent's response was evasive. Rather than taking ownership, he leaned on the shield of process, saying it would be difficult to monitor everyone's social media, or that the Office of Personnel Management might have flagged that. These are classic bureaucratic dodges that shift responsibility from moral choice to procedural excuse. The deeper issue here is not just one man's hiring decision. It's about what kind of values are guiding the institutions that shape our economy, our policy, and our democracy. When individuals with histories of hate are allowed into spaces of immense power, even read-only roles, it signals a collapse of ethical standards in the name of convenience or political favoritism. And remember, this isn't happening in isolation. This comes amid reports of Elon Musk's Doge team being embedded in multiple agencies, including HHS and the Treasury, blurring the line between private influence and public governance. That's not innovation, it's infiltration under the guise of modernization. The presence of individuals like Alice in critical government systems raises another question. What happens when ideological extremism quietly infiltrates the machinery of state? These are not just moral risks, they are national security vulnerabilities. The Treasury's payment systems are the backbone of federal financial stability. A wrong decision, a compromised system, or a manipulated access point could have catastrophic consequences. Representative Ivey's insistence wasn't just about a racist employee. It was about the integrity of governance itself. His questioning reminds us that diversity, transparency, and accountability are not woke ideals. They are national security imperatives. Because when leaders shrug off bigotry, when they minimize hate speech, and when they allow unvetted individuals to access sensitive systems, they're not protecting the American people, they're endangering them. This exchange wasn't loud or dramatic. It was deliberate, pointed, and revealing, a glimpse of how deeply political influence and personal connections can override ethics in today's political landscape. And that's why this moment matters. It shows how accountability in government, especially in areas touching financial power, must be more than procedural. It must be moral. We can't afford to treat hate as a footnote or bias as a bureaucratic oversight. Democracy demands vigilance, not only from leaders like Glenn Ivey who dare to ask uncomfortable questions, but from all of us who must demand better from those in power. Because when hate finds its way into government, the cost isn't just political, it's human. Call to action. If you believe in transparency, accountability, and keeping public service rooted in integrity and equality, stay informed, stay vocal, and never accept evasive answers from those who wield authority. Democracy only works when we demand that those who serve us do so with both competence and conscience. Would you like me to now create sharp, powerful titles, description, hashtags, keywords, and thumbnail text for this commentary? With progressive and powerful titles. Racism, a collapse of ethical standards. Progressive, a moral call to action. Public service, atonement or transparency. Hashtags, bipartisan accenture. Butts are not president. Woke ideals. Transparency, accountability. Governance, accountability. Progressive leaders. Keywords: woke, racism, bias, policy, process. Focus, accountability. Finances, vigilance, and transparency. Thumbnail text. Butts aren't president. Now let's bring accountability into politics. Racism, a collapse of ethical standards. Progressive, a moral call to action. Public service, atonement or transparency. This commentary is about real truth, not woke ideals. Call to action. If you believe in transparency, accountability, and keeping public service rooted in integrity and equality, stay informed, stay vocal, and never accept evasive answers from those who wield authority. Democracy only works when we demand that those who serve us do so with both competence and conscience.